I'm leaving, Noah. I'm going to Lucas's place tonight. He listens to me in a way you never have. That was the sentence that cracked the room in half. No warning, no build-up, just a blunt confession delivered in the doorway like she was telling me she forgot to buy milk. Before we get started, be sure to subscribe to Family Tales by Ethan so you never miss out on these fascinating true stories. And let us know in the comments what you're watching today. Ava stood there with her arms crossed, chin lifted like she was daring me to explode. Maybe she expected shouting, accusations, the kind of messy confrontation she could twist into justification later. What she didn't expect was the quiet. I looked at her, really looked at her, and something inside me just stopped fighting. My shoulders loosened, my breath steadied, and the panic she was hoping to see never arrived. Instead, I gave her a small, tired smile. Do what you want, I said. It's your choice. She blinked, stunned. For a second, her bravado cracked. Ava had always thrived on storms. Chaos gave her a sense of control. But I wasn't playing my part anymore, and she didn't know what to do with that. She grabbed her purse, muttered something under her breath, and slammed the door so hard the framed photos rattled. When the echo faded, the apartment fell into a silence that felt final. I stood still for a long moment. Not because I was heartbroken. I'd done my grieving months ago, but because it was strange to watch the end finally walk out the door. The air smelled like her perfume, sweet and lingering, but empty in a way I couldn't ignore. This wasn't a fight. It wasn't even betrayal anymore. It was confirmation of something I'd already known. Ava wasn't mine to lose. She hadn't been for a long time. When we met 5 years earlier, I thought she was a wildfire, bright and irresistible. I was steady, grounded, the responsible one who paid bills on time and preferred calm to chaos. She was color and noise and unpredictability. She painted until dawn, danced barefoot in our kitchen, made impulsive road trip plans at 3 a.m. She made my quiet life feel less like a routine and more like a story. Back then, her spontaneity felt charming instead of destructive. Our early years were good, great, even. We traveled when we could, stayed up too late watching documentaries we never finished, whispered promises that felt unbreakable. She told me I made her feel safe. I told her she made me feel alive. We meant every word. But time has a way of revealing what love can't fix. The pullback started slowly, a fading touch here, a distracted answer there. She laughed at her phone more than she talked to me. When I asked what was wrong, she gave the same tired sigh every time. You've changed, Noah. You don't get me anymore. It became her refrain. And behind every comparison she made, every irritated shrug, every unanswered question, there was a name she never said out loud at first, but was always hovering between us. Lucas. Her ex. At first it was subtle. Little references slipped into conversations. Then it grew sharper. Lucas used to understand my art better. Lucas would never say that. Lucas always knew how to make me feel seen. Each mention was a tiny cut. I didn't scream, didn't accuse, didn't throw assumptions at her feet like weapons. That wasn't who I was. Instead, something inside me slowly dimmed, inch by inch, until I couldn't even feel jealous anymore. Just numb. I tried though. I adjusted my schedule, planned dates, learned more about her art world, asked the questions she swore I didn't care about. But I could see it already, the story she was building in her mind. The misunderstood artist trapped with the boring, predictable husband. The free spirit suffocated by structure. She needed to feel constantly desired, constantly chosen, constantly adored by someone new. And I was tired of fighting to be enough. One night, while she showered, her phone buzzed on the counter. I didn't go looking, it flashed on its own. Lucas. Can't wait to see you again. Don't let him find out. My chest didn't tighten. My stomach didn't drop. All I felt was certainty. A quiet, steady certainty that the woman I'd fallen in love with was long gone. But I didn't confront her. Not then. I wanted the truth to reveal itself without me pulling at the thread. I wanted her to show who she really was, not the romanticized version she tried to sell the world. And with every late night, every sidelong smile at her phone, every new excuse for why she wasn't wearing her ring, she was doing exactly that. By the time she finally stood in that doorway and said she was going to Lucas's, it didn't hurt. It felt like the final puzzle piece sliding into place. After she walked out, I exhaled deeply. My hands didn't shake. My heart didn't race. I simply reached for my phone. First a locksmith, then a moving service, then my lawyer, names I had bookmarked weeks earlier, waiting for the inevitable. Because while Ava was chasing excitement, I was preparing for the future. The locksmith came late, working quietly while I sat scrolling through photos I'd never looked at twice. I deleted them one by one, watching the gallery shift from us to me. It didn't feel tragic. It felt necessary. By the time the locks clicked into place, I felt lighter. Free even. Then came the packing. Her clothes, makeup, canvases, brushes, the clutter she scattered like breadcrumbs everywhere she went. I boxed everything without hesitation and arranged delivery to her mother's house before dawn. I took photos for documentation, emailed my lawyer with a short, detached statement, and closed my laptop with a calm I didn't know I was capable of. As the sun rose, I poured a glass of whiskey, sat by the window, and watched the city stretch awake. For the first time in years, the air inside my chest felt breathable. I didn't know then that the night wasn't done with me, or that before dawn broke again, I would receive a call I never expected from the man she left me for. The call came at 1:03 a.m., just as I was drifting into the first real sleep I'd had in months. At first, I ignored the vibration, assuming it was Ava demanding attention again. But when the screen lit up, it wasn't her name. It was an unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. Yeah. A brief pause. Then a voice I never expected to hear again said, Noah? It's Lucas. I sat up straight, pulse sharpening, not with fear, but with a strange, detached curiosity. I hadn't spoken to him since the one awkward handshake years back, before I'd understood that his ghost would haunt our marriage longer than any real man ever could. He sighed softly, the sound of someone who'd been rehearsing this call and still wasn't ready. Look, I know this is weird, but I figured you deserve to know what's going on. I didn't say a word. I just listened. She came to my place tonight, he said flatly, with a suitcase, like she was moving in. I closed my eyes, not in pain, but in confirmation. Of course she had. I let her in, he continued. I made her a drink, listened to her ramble. She said you didn't understand her, that you were too rigid, too. What did she say? Emotionally limited. His voice tightened with something between irritation and pity. She kept going on about how I got her. Sounds like her, I said quietly. He let out a humorless laugh. Yeah, well, I told her the truth. I leaned back against the headboard, waiting for the part one already suspected. I told her I wasn't interested, he said. That I didn't want her back. That I never did. I just wanted to prove something to myself, I guess. Or maybe to her. He paused. Or maybe to both of us. I pictured Ava sitting on his couch, mascara smudged, voice shaky, confidently assuming the world would bend for her, because it always had. Then the world didn't. She didn't take it well. The sound of him lighting a cigarette crackled through the line. She screamed, cried, threw a vase. I told her to get out, or I'd call the cops. She left in a full meltdown. I stared into the dark room, almost seeing it unfold like a scene I'd watched countless times, just never from this angle. Truthfully, I felt nothing. Just clarity. She's probably on her way back to you now, he added. I checked the time. 1:03, right on cue. As if scripted, my phone buzzed again, Ava's name lighting up the screen. I didn't answer. More texts followed. Open the door. Stop playing games. Where are my things? You changed the locks? Are you insane? The pounding started next, loud and frantic. I walked to the door, but didn't open it. Go home, Ava, I said through the wood. My voice didn't waver. Not even a little. You chose to leave. You can't do this. Noah, open the door. I swear, your things are at your mother's, I said. That's where you said you'd be safer anyway, remember? She stopped. Then her voice shrank into disbelief. You actually did it. She said the words like betrayal, not realizing she was the one who'd walked out with her betrayal in hand. When the hallway finally fell silent, I exhaled and called Lucas back. She just left. He laughed quietly. Didn't think she'd take rejection well. No, I said. She never has. There was a pause. One of those rare, quiet moments when two people who barely know each other still recognize the same wound in each other. You good? He asked. Better than I expected, I admitted. We talked for 10 more minutes. Two men connected only by the disaster that was Ava's emotional gravity. He told me stories about her I hadn't heard, and I shared ones he found unsettlingly familiar. It was strange, hearing how identical our experiences had been, years apart. The same patterns, the same chaos, the same excuses. It was like we'd both dated different versions of the same storm. After we hung up, I poured another drink and stared out the kitchen window. The street below was empty, streetlights glowing over cracked pavement. The whole world felt silent, paused, waiting. There was no satisfaction in any of this. No triumph. Just a sense of peace settling into the spaces she used to fill with noise. Because the truth was simple, she didn't lose me tonight. She'd lost me months ago. Tonight, she just noticed. The divorce moved faster than I expected. With the messages, the security footage, the timeline, and Lucas's written statement, my lawyer called it the cleanest case he'd seen in years. Ava had left voluntarily, admitted to seeing another man, and abandoned the home without coercion. The court didn't grant her assent. When the final papers arrived, I didn't celebrate. I didn't even smile. I just felt light, like someone had lifted a heavy coat off my shoulders that I didn't realize I'd been wearing. A few days later, she sent one last message. I made a mistake. We both said things we didn't mean. Can we talk? I forwarded it to my lawyer and archived the thread. That was the last time I heard from her. But life has a funny way of stitching unexpected threads together. A month after everything was finalized, Lucas called again. This time with a suggestion that surprised both of us. Grab a drink. Neutral ground. Just two people trying to make sense of a mess they never asked to share. We met at a small bar downtown, the kind where the lights are low and the bartender doesn't ask questions. What started as stiff small talk shifted, slowly, into something easier. We joked about the absurdity of our situation. We compared stories, timelines, patterns. Turns out we'd both lived the same script, just years apart. By the end of the night, I realized something unexpected. We weren't rivals. We were survivors of the same storm. Over the next few months, we stayed in touch, occasionally meeting for drinks, talking about work, sharing travel plans. He even pitched a business idea he'd been sitting on, and somehow, it made sense for both of us. Strange, isn't it? The woman who tried so hard to pit us against each other ended up being the reason we met at all. Sometimes late at night, I remember how Ava once said Lucas understood her better than I ever could. Maybe she was right. He did understand her. And that's exactly why neither of us wanted her back. Peace isn't loud. It's quiet. Quiet enough to finally hear your own life again. Spring came early that year. Warm, bright, almost suspiciously gentle. It felt strange stepping into a new season without the usual dread, without waiting for another explosion, another accusation, another emotional ricochet. For the first time in years, my life felt still. I kept my routine simple. Wake up early. Make real breakfast. Bike to work instead of driving. Read at night instead of walking on eggshells. My house, our old house, felt different too. Not empty. Just mine again. One afternoon in April, while sorting through the last box I'd avoided, the box marked miscellaneous, which always means emotional landmine, I found something I didn't expect. A letter. Not from Ava. From myself. Written 2 years earlier for some forgotten journaling exercise a therapist had recommended. I'd written, if you ever wake up one day and realize you are living someone else's life, leave. You don't owe permanence to someone who mistakes possession for love. I sat with that for a long time. Then I tore the paper in half, not out of anger, but out of completion. I didn't need the reminder anymore. 2 days later, Lucas texted, drinks tonight? I need to vent before I say something rude in a staff meeting and get myself fired. I replied with a thumbs up emoji and met him at the usual place. He was already at the bar, spinning a coaster between his fingers like he was trying to wear down the edges. When he saw me, he let out the kind of half-groan that meant his day had been ridiculous. You look alive, he said as I sat down. Disgusting. Offends me. You look like you fought with your printer again. It started it. We ordered beers, and for a while, we just talked. About work, about travel plans, about how he'd finally blocked Ava after she tried contacting him again from a different number. Neither of us reacted strongly to it anymore. It was just another weather report from a storm we'd already outgrown. But halfway through the night, he got quiet. Not uncomfortable quiet. Just deliberate. You ever think it's weird? He said, staring into his glass. How we got dragged into each other's lives because of her, but somehow ended up here anyway. Yeah, I said. Weird doesn't even cover it. He gave a short laugh. Then his expression softened in a way I hadn't seen before. I'm glad we met, though. I looked at him, really looked at him. The tension he used to carry in his shoulders wasn't there anymore. The bitterness had smoothed out. He looked freer too. Yeah, I said quietly. Me too. Something unspoken lingered in the air for a moment. Not heavy, just honest. He changed the subject first, asked about a project I was working on. I teased him about his terrible fashion choices. He insulted my taste in beer. The world continued, easy and unforced. When we stepped outside to leave, he paused on the sidewalk. You heading home? He asked. Yeah. You. He hesitated. Then, wanna walk a bit? It's nice out. I nodded. We walked in comfortable silence beneath the dim streetlights, the spring air cool enough to feel clean. At one point our arms brushed. Not dramatic, not meaningful, just human proximity, but neither of us shifted away. About halfway down the block, he spoke softly. Weird question, he said. Do you think your life would have looked anything like this if everything hadn't happened? No, I answered honestly. And I'm not sure I'd change it. He exhaled slowly, like he'd been waiting for that answer without knowing it. When we finally reached the corner where our paths split, he stopped. Hey, he said. You doing anything Saturday? No plans yet. He nodded once. Almost too casual. There's this place that opened recently. Good food. Live music that doesn't suck. You should come with me. It wasn't framed like a question, but it was. I could have overthought it, but I didn't. Yeah, I said. I'd like that. A small, genuine smile flickered across his face, brief, unguarded. All right then. Saturday. He turned to go, then paused. And Noah? Yeah. I'm glad she didn't get the last word. I smiled. She never did. He walked off, and I stood there a moment longer, watching his silhouette fade down the lit sidewalk. Not with longing. Not with confusion, with curiosity, with possibility. It's strange how healing looks nothing like you expect. Sometimes it looks like two strangers pulled through the same storm. Sometimes it looks like a quiet bar and an easy conversation. Sometimes it looks like a Saturday night plan you didn't know you wanted until it was offered. And sometimes, unexpectedly, quietly, gently, healing looks like the beginning of something new.